if you find some really good angles, some good points that are, again, newsworthy, and that you pitch them out, you have a really good bunch of pitch angles in an email that are relevant and that makes sense, then the media will want to gravitate toward them and interview them.
Welcome to Storytelling for Engagement, the podcast where we talk about all things creative and content related to make your story unforgettable. I'm your host, Miranda O'Connor from The Art of Storytelling, and I'm excited to start this storytelling journey with you. Thanks for joining us again on our podcast, Storytelling for Engagement. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Nelson Hudes, who is a PR expert from Toronto with clients and media contacts all over North America. Nelson's going to share his knowledge about PR, and he's going to give us some great stories and case studies about some of the clients that he's worked with. So Nelson, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how you got started in PR?
Sure, thanks, Miranda. So actually went to Seneca College and took a 2-year radio and TV arts course back in 1979. After that, I joined a company in the auto racing world. I joined Mosport Park, which is an hour's drive east of Toronto. Did the marketing, PR, sponsorship, promotions, all that kind of stuff for the racetrack. Ended up being the director of marketing, stayed there for 14 and a half years. And the one thing that I loved the most was the PR. So after I finished that stint, I went out on my own and established my own PR company, working with mostly right now, public and private companies, helping them get earned media exposure.
Okay, great. And the important thing with PR, and similar to what I do with video storytelling, is establishing trust. And how do you go about establishing trust with the media?
So if you've got a good story and they've worked with you before, there'll come a point where they trust you and want, because you've given them something obviously good and it worked out really well, great source, and you get on their source list, and they'll turn to you over and over and over again when you've got, or they'll even call you to ask you, hey, does your client want to comment on this? I mean, so like I had a client in Florida who runs a hearing aid clinic, and they were talking about over-the-counter hearing aids a few months ago, and they, out of the blue, they called me up and said, does Dr. Weinbaum want to comment on this? And I said, I'll get a hold of her and I'll see if she's available. And we made that happen, and she got on the air, because I usually work with her only a couple of times a year on 2 different projects. But the television station had the trust in calling me because they knew I had a good source for them.
Right. And what would the media consider a good story? Like, what are the elements that you need to have, or that you need to know that, yes, you've got a good story and the media is going to want this?
Got to have something that's newsworthy. That's the key. It can't be promotional. If it's promotional, they'll see right through it. There's got to be a good takeaway for their listeners, their readers, or their viewers on TV. It's got to be something that's newsworthy, relevant, and just like that, or if there's a new product that's being launched, that could be relevant, tying into technology or whatever of the day, whatever they're talking about today. It's just that's those are some of the things.
Right. And so when you are pitching this story to the media, what are the different steps? Like, from you to the media, eventually it becomes your client talking directly to the media. So when it's just you pitching to the media, what are you actually sending them that gets them interested?
So I really don't send them press releases anymore. I'll create an email pitch with a couple of short paragraphs that are relevant, with bullet points. They don't have a lot of time to read stuff. You've got them for 10 or 15 seconds, and that's it, if that. So it's got to be really, really compelling. And if it's really compelling and it fits what they're doing, then they're liable to contact you and ask for an interview with your client. And your client always has to be ready to go to do an interview. I've had a situation where about a year and a half ago, where I had a television station in Toronto wanting to interview the client because they wanted to get it on the 5 o'clock and the 6 o'clock news that night. And this was a public company. And the CEO said he was busy that day with investor meetings. Can't I make it happen on another day? And I told him no. I said, if you turn this down, it goes away. I can't get it back. So I said, you need to find a way to do this. And that's it. And he goes, I'll call you back in 10 minutes. Called me back in 10 minutes. And we arranged the shoot. And it happened that day. And it appeared on their 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock news that night. And he said, kudos to you, because that's the best TV piece we've ever had. So these things don't grow on trees. I mean, you get a call from CNN, you get a call from a big media outlet. You don't turn it down. If the CEO is the media spokesperson, he or she is too busy. What they need to do is assign somebody else as a backup media spokesperson, because if you turn it down, they're just going to go on to another source, and you've lost that opportunity. And that's not why we're here. You're hired because of your expertise to help them generate a lot of noise. But then when you start making the contacts and start making the connections, and the media starts coming after you to set up interviews, the CEO or whoever is the media spokesperson has got to be available to take those calls and do those interviews.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say, I had another situation years and years ago. There was the Air France airplane. I think it was 2005, and it fell out of the sky at Pearson Airport, and there was smoke everywhere, sirens. And I had a client in the aviation industry, and I called him up on his cell phone, and I said, I don't care what meetings you have today. If you see my number come up, you take my call. Do not turn off your phone. He goes, why? What are you about to do? I said, I'm about to put out a media advisory to every station in the city that I've got an expert in the aviation industry available to talk about what just happened today. I rang his phone several times, because once I did that, I had several TV stations coming after me to interview him.
Right. But was he currently a client of yours?
Yes, he was. I told him, don't ignore my call today. It's too important, because if I do this, the media is going to come after me and want to interview you, and you've got to be available. So I said, you can't just return my call late in the day. There's going to be, I think there's going to be tons of media coming and wanting to interview you. So you've got to take all of my calls so that I can set up these interviews for you. Nice.
And did he get more than one interview?
Oh yeah, he got like 4 or 5. Maybe 4 TV interviews, a bunch of radio, a bunch of print. It was wild. It was great.
Mm-hmm. So in some cases, because I was thinking earlier when you said, you give the media something that's good, is it that the company that you're working for or representing, do they know what is good and what the story is, or do you?
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. They think they know, and they're too close to it. And I tell them, no, that won't work. That won't work. That won't work. I will take I will do my deep dive, do a study, and I will create a pitch that I think is going to be relevant and compelling, and run it by them and say, this is what I think will work, and get their blessing. And then once I have their blessing, then I go pitching.
Right. Okay. And what about spokesperson prep? I know you said they have to be available, but if you want them to be non-promotional, how do you prep them so that they know what to say and what not to say?
So I get them on a call like this, and I go over with them what their points are. They've got to know their points. And if the interviewer tries to take them off topic, teach them how to get back on topic, and just go over it and tell them, go home and do it in the mirror a whole bunch of times, before you go. Like, I won't let any media near any client before they're properly prepared to go out in front of the camera, or to get on a radio interview or whatever. They can't just wing it. Right. I mean, if they wing it, they'll they'll blow it. And I mean, I had a situation years ago where I had a client on breakfast television in Toronto, and he repeatedly throughout the conversation kept telling the audience to go to the website.
Right.
And that is a huge no-no. If they, if the interview said at the beginning of an interview says, tell us about your company, that opens the door up for them to do that. But usually shameless self-promotion is left for the end of the interview, and they say, how does our audience get a hold of you? And then you're invited to give that answer.
Right.
But that situation, what happened was they ended up not getting invited back for like a long time. They were on a blacklist because they didn't want him to do whatever he did. And it took a long time to get him back on. After the interview, he said, "Oh, great interview, eh, Nelson?" I said, "No." I said, you have no idea what you did.
Yeah.
No. I go, watch the video, and then you tell me what you think you did. And he watched the video, and he still couldn't come up with it. And I told him after the fact, I said, you can't do that. And I've told you that before.
So what about PR and immediate results? Do you find PR gives companies immediate results, or is PR more of a long game?
It's both. Sometimes if you've got something that's relevant to what they're talking about already out there in the media, like if it's a current topic and you offer a source to talk about a current topic, like I mentioned before about the aviation thing, then it could be relatively quick. Or if we do something like what we call in the business newsjacking, where you find things that out there that they're already talking about, and you offer up sources to continue that conversation. And then it can also be long because it might not be something that they're currently working on. So it might take longer, or what you might have to do is if the pitch isn't working, you have to rejig the pitch and find something more relevant that will work.
Okay. So Nelson, how much news do you watch every day or read every day?
Okay, so I'm old school. You can see by the gray hairs. Okay, I still get, believe it or not, I still get 3 newspapers delivered to my door every morning, and I read through them. I read through the Star, the Globe, and the Post. Not only because I'm interested in reading news, because I think there's nothing like turning pages, but I'm also looking for people that I can, reporters that I can send clients to go pitch those reporters with something relevant. Television news, I don't watch that much each day, but I do listen to the news on the radio when I'm driving. But I mostly read.
Okay. And what types of news do you try to get your clients on? Is it newspapers and radio, TV? Like what's your go-to?
My go-to is first I'll ask them where do you want to be? What's your wish list? So then we'll work on the wish list from there. So if they want to get into big city newspaper, there's nothing like getting a story in the Globe or the Post or the Toronto Star, or a national piece. Getting that because that's going to be seen throughout the country. So it all depends what the client wants and what I think that that I should be going after for them.
Right. Okay. And how do you measure success with PR?
In the PR business, we tend to usually say that PR is 8 to 10 times more valuable than a paid ad because it's third-party validation. It's the media endorsing you versus you endorsing yourself by sticking your hand in your wallet and paying for an ad. That's pay to play. Earned media is worth all that more, and also because it can be used in other places, such as they can create a media room on their website, put it there. They can use it in their blog posts. They can use it in their newsletters. They can use it in all their marketing material. They can put it on their Facebook, their Twitter, their LinkedIn, all these channels. It's not just a matter of getting the hit and then it's there and then it's gone the next day. In today's digital world, it can be used. It goes a lot farther than it used to.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about combining PR and advertising? So say it's a company that's really just not known. Do you have a hard time pitching stories from really unknown new companies? Or does it help if there is some advertising going along with it?
No, PR and advertising are two separate things. Um, Advertising is advertising, and if you're advertising in a publication, the kiss of death, the worst thing you can do is ask the advertising department to ask you to get editorial, unless it's an advertorial,
Yep.
because the two departments don't work together like that.
Yep.
So, but in terms of scheme of a marketing plan, they probably should have a mix of both. Like with public companies, they have to do investor relations. They have no choice. They all have to do it.
Mhm.
But what some of these public companies don't understand is that they need a mix of PR and IR, because they need the PR to help drive the IR. The IR brings in investors. The PR makes a lot of noise so that the investors will know about the company, right? So
Mhm. Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. Um, what do you need to have on file when you're pitching? So say you're pitching to TV. Does it help if you have photos and videos of what you do? Like what kind of package do you give to the different
so
media?
so you always have to have what we call B-roll, which is video footage that they can cut into their story. You always have to have that. It's nice to have stills
Mhm.
as well. A backgrounder, a fact sheet, all those things are a good package to have. Um, Especially, I worked in the hearing aid world as well, and I've pitched hearing aid stories to television stations. And if they end up not coming to an event, so then I've got video footage of it, and
Mhm.
I've got stills, and then I can send them an email with some points of what happened at it, and they might run it. They
Mhm.
might run it on the news, or they might put it on their website. So having all of that, that's a like that with that, that's a backup plan, and it always works, because if I'm pitching in one market, like let's say a hearing aid story to come where somebody's going to get hearing aids from a hearing care foundation, and they don't come, and I've got the stills from the event and I've got the video from the event, and I send it out afterwards, chances of getting picked up if they've got some space in the news are better. So you can't just send them something and ask them to come. They're going to ask for. You got to be prepared. You got to have the stuff ahead of time before they even do the story.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I mean, often we have our clients who, we've created some kind of video story for, and then months later or even years later, they say, "Oh, do you remember when we did that? Can you send us some B-roll of some of the shots?" Because, the CEO is going on this TV interview or something. So it's nice to be able to see that getting, used over and over again and benefiting the client.
Stock B-roll is very important when you're pitching TV stations, because they're going to want to have something to cut in. And also, I mean, if you're doing something that require, like an end user, like if it's again, I go back to either podiatry or hearing aids, they always want to talk to an end user like a patient. Without that, they really don't have a story. They've got to get it. They got to get it from the horse's mouth, right?
Yeah,
Of how it affected them. So
absolutely. One of our favorite things to do or to include in a company profile video is client testimonials, because that's where you actually get the real, believable, trustable information from.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah. Nelson, do you want to give us any stories about past clients that you've been able to get very successful PR for?
Well, my favorite one is Robert Kiyosaki, who is the New York Times bestselling author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was introduced to him by a client out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, who was one of the only Canadian Rich Dad facilitators in Canada and knew Robert very well. And he took him on a 6-city Canadian tour back in 2011 and asked me if I wanted to do the PR for it. And I said, absolutely. And so in those 6 cities, all Robert had time to do was radio. So I set him up radio interviews in each of the 6 cities. And then after that, he came to Toronto, and I went to the event. It was for a new book that came out, and he was doing a book signing. And I met him, and he got my card, and he asked me if I work in the U.S. as well. And I said, of course. What's the border got to do with pitching a story idea to a journalist? Took my card, wrote something on the back of it, stuck in his shirt pocket. 3 weeks later, he called me out of the blue, and he brought me in to work for the Rich Dad Company on a new book that was coming out to help them in a couple of different states. And that was short term. And then in 2016, he called me again personally, both times, and worked with him on a third time. And he has written a fantastic testimonial for me that I've got from Robert.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen it. What about a client not as well known as him, like a totally new company that doesn't have much reputation? Do you have a success story for an example like that?
If you find some really good angles, some good points that are, again, newsworthy, and that you pitch them out, you have a really good bunch of pitch angles in an email that are relevant and that makes sense, then the media will want to gravitate toward them and interview them.
Mhm.
Like when I worked with Drone Delivery Canada, like when I worked with Danavation, we've got these the television piece that I was referring to earlier on City TV was with a company called Danavation. They had digital smart labels, so when you walk into one of the grocery stores and you see the white labels on the aisles that can be changed by hand, they take that job away of changing them by hand, and they get changed on the fly digitally. And so the whole story idea was that digital labels are here, right? And that they can be changed electronically, and they have a 10-year battery life. So that story ended up on City TV a year ago, July, on their 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock news.
Yeah. And what kind of impact does getting PR like that have on an organization?
Well, if it's a public company, it'll obviously all the media hits will help them in their goal of getting new customers, and it will also help them to raise their stock price,
Mm-hmm.
which is ultimately what they want. They want new customers and they want their stock to go up. So
Yeah. And what about the sales cycle? How is the sales cycle impacted?
it's not immediate. It can be a longer go, but the fact that they're getting media hits out there helps them tell their story to potential customers, and they can show them these media hits. It just helps enforce the story that they're already telling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you find, because like I'm just thinking from my perspective, when I do video stories with clients, sometimes they kind of think like they have their story in their head, and then they tell it, and then we edit it, we make it sound great. Do you find sometimes reporters, do they take the story as it's said, or do they kind of massage it into something that sounds a little bit more interesting or important?
That's their job is to make it sound more interesting. So
Yeah.
that's a real plus if they do that. If they take it off course and take it in another direction, which the company wouldn't like, that's unfortunate. But sometimes that happens too.
Because sometimes the people who are in the company, it's too close to them, and they can't always express it in the most interesting way.
So this is why, again, that they have to be media trained before they get in front of a camera
Hmm.
as to what to say and how to say it and what to say and what not to say.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Nelson, what else can you tell us about PR that we haven't spoken about?
For me, it gives me a real rush. I don't know if you want me to talk about that. I mean, I've been doing it a long time. I still get great satisfaction out of it. It's fun. It's hard work. It doesn't come easy. You have to get great relationships with media so that they'll turn to you all the time. But it's not easy. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to have those relationships so that they will trust you. It's all about trust. So
Hmm. Absolutely. So one last question, because I think I know what the answer is, but how many cell phones do you have, and how many hours a day are you ready to answer that phone?
I have one, but it never leaves my side until I go to sleep. It's always on my, it doesn't matter where I am in the world. I mean, I was once in, 7-hour time difference. I was in Israel and I got a call. My wife says, "What are you doing? We're on vacation." I said, "How long have we been married? And how, you know what I do? Like, media doesn't know where I am.
Mhm.
And so if they call me to set up an interview, I have to be available. So my phone never leaves my side. until I go to sleep, because I never know when I'm going to get a call and when I'm going to have to set up an interview. And I always act fast. I don't leave it, because if you leave it, they'll just go on to another source and it'll be a missed opportunity for your client.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. Nelson, thanks so much. I think this was really great information. I'm so glad that I had a PR person on my podcast.
And you're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you for inviting me.
And that concludes another episode of Storytelling for Engagement. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to like and share, and visit our website at theartofstorytelling.com to learn more about video storytelling content.